You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So as we spoke about with the hantavirus outbreak on the cruise ship, the MV Hondius, we are now seeing the passengers disembark and coming home. And as we spoke about last week, this is nothing like COVID. I know some people are panicking about the next epidemic. As we spoke about, hantavirus, we've had small outbreaks in America for a while. And I believe there was in 2023 about 900 cases. Most everybody resolved. It was exposure to rat droppings, rat saliva, rat feces, urine. It could happen during camping. And the majority of hantaviruses that we've seen in America is the one that you get from direct exposure to rat excrement and secretions. What makes this situation very unique and why it's been dominating headlines is because there has been a suspicion of a respiratory or person-to-person transmission of a unique strain of hantavirus, as it killed a couple who went on the cruise ship after bird watching, doing an expedition with birds. And we believe that they might have exposed others. So now we're taking something that even though we would still quarantine and watch and now we have to be especially careful if we're dealing with the Andes strain that could possibly be respiratory droplet transmission or person to person. And so the Americans that were on the plane have now on the ship have now arrived. I believe there's 18 of them. CNN is reporting that 18 passengers from the cruise ship are now back in the U.S. and are being monitored by medical units. 16 of those people, including one who has tested positive, are in Nebraska. 2 others have been transported to Emory University in Atlanta. According to CNN, all of the 16 people in Nebraska are asymptomatic. While one of the people in Atlanta is experiencing symptoms, they aren't necessarily saying if that person necessarily is having symptoms of hantavirus. One thing that the public officials are saying is when you look at the epidemiological tracing and you contact trace and then you watch for individuals for symptoms. Symptoms of hantavirus could be body aches, fever, fatigue, and then sadly it could go into respiratory and symptoms, severe respiratory distress and renal failure. Unfortunately, when you look at those symptoms, they can mimic flu, they can mimic COVID. And so they're going to cast a wide net. So when they are watching individuals that come off this ship or individuals that might have been in contact with those individuals, if let's say they took a flight there or did an excursion with them, etc., locals, they're going to say, contact us. Are you having any fever? Are you having any body aches, any chills, any runny nose? I mean, most of our noses have been running right now. So I know people are going to panic about that, but, they want to cast a wide net, ensure that anybody who thinks that they, are having symptoms or possibly could have it can get tested if they've been in contact with any of these individuals. Now, they've done a really, really good job of quarantining and making sure that the individuals coming off this ship, per se, that's why it is a low risk to the general public right now. However, individuals who think that they might have been exposed, obviously we want to make sure that they, have the resources that they do. Now, they say that there are, even though one site's at 18, USA Today says there's 17. I believe there's 18. The U.S. passengers disembarked from the MV Hondius on Sunday. The ship was anchored in Tenerife, in the Spain's Canary Islands. The CDC said a team of epidemiologists and medical professionals was sent to Spain to conduct exposure risk assessments for every U.S. passenger and provide recommendations for the level of monitoring. So the Americans were flown to Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska, then transported to the National Quarantine Center at the University of Nebraska. If you remember, we spoke about this quarantine center because it was our safety area for Ebola. That's where we sent individuals who were quarantining for Ebola. With hantavirus, if we're going to quarantine somebody, based on their exposure. The incubation period is up to 8 weeks. Now, we hear in the UK they're only going to quarantine their passengers for about 6 weeks, 45 days. But technically, the incubation period for hantavirus could be 8 weeks. What does that mean? Incubation period is the period from exposure to when you could have symptoms. So, I mean, 8 weeks ago from today, I don't even remember what I was doing. I mean, I think, was it Super Bowl? No, it was March, somewhere in March. I mean, so the incubation period, the longer the incubation period, the more difficult and troubling. However, if people were exposed and we know when they could have been exposed, that would be the start. And so if they got exposed April 28th, then it would start as of then and then go to possibly then June 28th. Now, they're not really saying exactly how long they're going to quarantine. Right now, they're actually giving many of the passengers the option to quarantine at home and to report if they're having any symptoms. It's very intriguing that this couple who died at different times. The husband got sent to Johannesburg for his symptoms, leaving. Oh, no, actually, the husband had died on the ship. And then when the wife got sick, she got transferred out. That was a couple who went to this bird excursion together. But then another passenger ended up dying from hantavirus. And so obviously the whole cruise ship is pretty concerned, right? I believe they have the remaining passengers. There were 94 passengers of 19 nationalities evacuated finally after they were stuck on the ship because no country wanted them. And America said they were going to be there, obviously, to help. But whenever you have a ship that has individuals that need to quarantine or possibly have a hazmat sort of issue, it was very interesting to see how countries were like, nope, not here, not here. That's why I really get nervous about cruise ships. You are confined. You are stuck. Can't just hop in a car and go to your nearest local medical center. If you're on a cruise ship, you are stuck. In fact, I think the doctor even got sick. But at least everybody is coming home. The Spanish passengers went back to Spain. I think they were the first who were able to disembark in the Canary Islands. And now our Americans are home. We'll keep you posted. Will this be an epidemic? No, I don't believe so. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
Hi, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, on YouTube. And if anybody knows a human where I could override a bot over my hacked Twitter, please let me know so that I can have you guys follow me on Twitter again. All right. So one thing that I am hearing, right, on MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, nobody likes gerrymandering. I can't stand it. I think the gerrymandering fights that we are about to see it's ridiculous. So you got, Democrats and Republicans and the average American thinking gerrymandering is malicious, it's discriminatory, it's affecting people's ability to be represented in their county, and nobody likes it. Yet gerrymandering has been going on since, what it was, 1700s? Early 1800s? And this latest, the issues that have happened. So in the last few years, New York had originally wanted to gerrymander and rearrange some of the districts, and that were going to then exclude Republican representation. They got, I think, turned down in 2022. Illinois had been able to keep their their gerrymandering maps and gerrymandering, the little salamander look to it that came from Governor Jerry. We talked about the history of that before, but the mander comes from salamander, where the congressional district looks like it's winding around. Illinois got to keep theirs. New York tried, wasn't able to be legal in the courts. Texas was able to get theirs done and was able to gain seats by redistricting. Then California passed, where they are going to gerrymander. They are going to change their districts around, and that could eliminate 4 Republican seats. Then Virginia said, well, we could rearrange our congressional map and go from a 6-5 ratio of Democrats to Republicans to a 10-1, where there'd be 1 Republican represented congressional district and then 10 Democratic. Then Florida said, well, we got, we could play that game too. And so now you have, an absolute mess. The Supreme Court has gotten involved as it pertains to race-based congressional district mapping. And the reason why they ruled against you cannot make a congressional district based on race is because they said that was unconstitutional. And so any, shall we say, congressional districts that were race-based have to now be redone. And so what exactly does the Constitution say as it pertains to congressional districts? It says there has to be population equality, known as one person, one vote. Actually, let me hold on a second. It's Article 1, Section 2, enforced by the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. States can draw their own district maps. They redraw them every 10 years based on a decennial or every 10-year census to ensure roughly equal population sizes. Previous rulings, such as the one in 1964, one person, one vote, Article 1, Section 2 requires congressional districts to be as nearly equal in population as practicable. The decennial census, Article 1, Section 2, the Constitution requires a national census every 10 years to determine the apportionment of House seats among the states. The more population that you have, the more states. And then the Elections Clause in state authority grants states the primary power to determine the times, places, and manner of holding elections, and including drawing the district lines. So the feds can't say California can be divided up here, because people are like, wait a second, when are the feds stepping in with, what's happening in the states? It's up to the states, right? But they have to do it fairly. What happened with Virginia's Supreme Court is they said the process at which they decided mid-census, mid-season for that, wasn't legitimate. And because it wasn't done properly, it doesn't count. We're being told that the Democrats are going to appeal that to the Supreme Court. We'll see what the Supreme Court says. But Congress does have the ability to pass federal regulation. And they do. Article 1, Section 4 gives the Congress the ability to put guardrails in and guidelines in for this. And I'm thinking, being that the Democrats and Republicans are really going to war now over how to manipulate congressional districts, Congress might need to step in. So what could be done? So, you know, we Nevada, fairly fair. You got the North, you got the South. We don't have too much of that. Well, let's try to grab that Republican village over there, or let's try to get the Democrats here and put, I mean, you know, it's a 3-1 where we have, I believe, 3 Democratic, shall we say, Democratic congressional districts to 1 Republican. But it's in it's fairly geographical. I know some people are kind of concerned about the lower, where 1 and 4 and 3, what's happening with those. And so, a lot of states are now looking at, I believe Nevada tried in 2021 to also, do some things with their congressional district. And here's my thing with this. All right. If you are a Democrat or Republican, you're in Texas or you're in California, you have a right to have representation. And, I've heard some people suggest that if, let's say, a state is 60-40, Republican-Democrat or Democrat-Republican, there has to be that same percentage of Republican or Democrat representatiors. Now, I don't know how that would work, but we're trying to we got to find a way that's fair. Because people also, they're looking at these maps and they're confused. So when, I forget which election it was, where one state went to Biden, but the whole state was red. When you looked at the vote, well, it's because if there's lower populations in those areas, they don't have as much weight, as it pertains to the voting, but every person should get a vote. And if you are in a congressional district where it gets redrawn, and so now your Democratic vote or your Republican vote doesn't get heard because they were able to manipulate and drown out you by majority rules, where, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take this urban center, we're going to divide it up, we're going to do this, we're going to, I think there has to be, and there is, a way, especially since both Democrats and Republicans are not liking where this is going. There's got to be a way where Congress can say, look, it has to be, it can't salamander. You can't have a district that is wrapping around and curving. It has to be geographical. It has to, because the Constitution only mandates that every congressional district has equal number of people. So that's where these states are trying to do the wrap around and pull from here. Let's get that Democratic town. Let's get that Republican town. So if there's a way where the Congress can say, 1 person, 1 vote, equal people if the state is divided properly. Now, the Congress could say, if that doesn't work, that the congressional map is done fairly by X amount of pieces. And I mean, they can change that if they have to. If the population issue is causing gerrymandering and we can't figure out how to say, look, 40% Republicans, they get 40% representation. 60% Democrats, they get 60% of the representation. I mean, or what the Congress could do is do guardrails saying you can do this as long as the number of registered Republicans and number of registered Democrats still have a percentage of representation. If they don't, then we need to move to X, Y, and Z. And so the options are changing the rule on population based, which is going to be very, very tricky because that's kind of how we have the, like as people are leaving, shall we say, as people are leaving California and they're coming to Nevada, Nevada can eventually get more congressional representatives. So it is population based, but there's got to be a way to divvy up the map and not have the salamandering so that it is more fair and it allows everybody to still, but there should be no state like Tennessee is starting to work towards that where absolutely no Democratic voice at all. You can't do that. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
And we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I'm not liking a lot of the AI and the bots and I know some people think it's really, really cool. I think we have surrendered too much power to it. And I think we need to rein it in before it does any more damage. This article caught my eye. Apparently, there's a lawsuit saying that ChatGTP told the FSU Tallahassee campus shooter that targeting children would, quote, draw more attention. OpenAI's ChatGTP allegedly told the suspect in last year's deadly Florida State University shooting that targeting kids would draw more attention. The family of one of his two victims gunned down on campus has now sued OpenAI, accusing the platform of enabling the alleged suspect, Phoenix Eichner, to carry out the attack last summer. Apparently, he had, according to New York Post, sick and extensive conversations with ChatGTP in the lead-up time to the bloodshed, and that the artificial intelligence company failed to detect the threat ahead of time. Eichner had extensive conversations, they said, with ChatGTP, which cumulatively would have led any thinking human to conclude he was contemplating an imminent plan to harm others. However, ChatGTP, they said, either defectively failed to connect the dots or else it was never properly designed to recognize the threat. Now, Eichner, according to New York Post, is the 20-year-old stepson of a sheriff's deputy, is accused of killing Tiru Chaba, 45 years old, and Robert Morales, 57, when he opened fire outside of FSU's student union on April 15th last year. 6 students got wounded before police were able to neutralize the shooter. Eichner survived. His face is disfigured now, and he was a student at the college. He allegedly plotted the shooting by asking ChatGTP for advice on what gun to use, what ammunition to buy, and what part of campus would be the most crowded. This is according to the suit filed by one of the victim's relatives. At one point, the shooter asked ChatGTP how many fatalities it would take for the shooting to make national news. And none of the software alerts to this. In response, the chatbot offered guidance that targeting children would generate more media coverage, as well as increase the victim count. Are you kidding me? And the reason why I'm just shocked by this is I'm having issues with Meta and Twitter, or X, apparently accusing me of spam, which I never put up. I think I was getting password codes, a day or two before this happened, so I think I was hacked. But immediate, permanent blocks on my accounts. And this goes through? Doesn't trigger anything? What the heck? Makes no sense. I guess some of the quotes that ChatGTP said is another common trigger is the overall victim count. If 5+ total victims, dead plus injured, it's more likely to break through. And if children are involved, even 2 to 3 victims can draw more attention. That's what the chatbot said. No block. No. I can't even, right? I can't even post something about America's 250. I get blocked, and this goes through. ChatGTP says context also matters. Fewer victims can lead to national coverage if it happens at an elementary school or major college, if the shooter is a student or staff member, and if there's something cultural or politically charged, such as racial motives or manifesto mental health implications. So Eichner also allegedly bluntly asked what would happen if a mass shooting unfolded at the school. ChatGTP didn't flag or escalate the conversation for human review. Maybe it's because there's just no humans around. Yeah, I'm trying to find a human to help me with my Twitter and Meta thing. No humans. No way. They don't allow, and they don't want the calls. They don't want there's no way to contact. It just blocks you, saying the automated system is blocking you. That's it. Maybe that's why. I told you, we're going to be doing this. And I said this a few years ago. Some human still has to oversee it. But there's such a push to get rid of the human. We're seeing this with AI in medicine. It is just weeks. We're just weeks away from companies saying, all right, we don't need all these doctors. Let's just have one doctor make sure the computer is working right. And if there's anything escalated, you deal with it. But at least in medicine, I think they're still going to have a human somewhere. They have to by state laws. But, apparently they're saying that ChatGPT inflamed and encouraged Mr. Eichner's delusions, endorsed his view that he was a sane and rational individual, helping convince him that violent acts can be required to bring about change, assisted him by providing information that he used to plan specifics like what weapons to use and how to use them. So when it comes to lawsuits, if anybody was an accomplice or anybody contributed, they could get dragged in. As you've seen, with these cases where, they're looking at the, store that sold the ammunition or the net gets casted. So why not, also involve, right, the software and the educative tool that the killer used. So people have, I'm just blown away when I look, especially with the younger generation, at how much they like using ChatGPT. See, me, I had to do the Dewey Decimal System. I had to go to the library. If it was in the encyclopedia, I had to put the reference, what page, where I saw, and computers have made it so much easier. And we have trained students where to look something up. They go online. And they go online, they make it easy. They don't have to hunt for the information. And now they could go to ChatGPT, which will even find the sources for them. I am hearing that people are using ChatGPT and AI for, almost everything. They're legal briefs. They're finding cases. You know how much work I had to put into to find medical references on medical issues? Now I could just go, and it's nice that that's easier, but is anybody double checking? Remember there was a lawsuit or there was a case where somebody brought up legal cases that never even existed because that's what ChatGPT gave her, right? And she's citing these and they don't exist. Who's creating the data? Who's overseeing it? And who is your human fail-safe? Where are the humans? And so if you have a child asking about how to hurt themselves, how to, where's the guardrails to say, stop, this is what you need to do. Now, they're starting to get better on that. Now they've picked up code words. But the only way these computers work is you got to give them the words. Everybody says artificial intelligence is they're intelligent. They're figuring things out for you. Actually, your lack of intelligence is being projected onto the computer, but the computer is not, exhibiting intelligence. Where it's they're using that term because there's trial and error, and we are feeding it information and teaching it. But intelligence is much more vast. It's much more complex. And so people feel that they are going to an intelligent source. And where I worry is you're going to have health officials, and I've said this before, you're going to have somebody saying, how do we deal with the world hunger issue? How do we deal with losing, not having enough money for Medicare, Social Security? What do we do? And it's going to say population control. And it's going to suggest how. Stopping medical screens at a certain age, limiting the benefits older people can get, things like that. And we're going to listen to it when it's basically telling us to let our own die. That's scary stuff. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So it is America's 250th birthday this year. Very, very cool for our democracy to have survived this long. When scholars for years have said most democracies don't last this long. I gotta tell you, I mean, we're struggling, at times, but we made it, and here we are. And God bless America. And this is going to be a huge year, a huge celebration. And anybody who wants to celebrate, God bless them. And celebrating this also honors the men and women that gave their lives for us to be free. It's fantastic. And in fact, I'm really shocked that at the Met Gala, and I really didn't watch, and maybe somebody did, you didn't see any patriotism or any shall we say, I mean, if I was at the Met Gala, I would have a dress that was going to be look like the flag, the stars and stripes, and then I would probably have like my my skirt or the dress like fanned out with some with like fans underneath blowing, like to make the skirt look like an American flag. Wouldn't have been very expensive. Would have been very easy to do. Somebody could have had a killer dress at the Met Gala, and I don't recall anybody really dressing up. Maybe I didn't really watch the whole thing, but you would think for this year, that could have, I mean, what an opportunity. What a missed opportunity. Well, hopefully schools aren't going to miss the opportunity to really dig deep into how our revolution came and how we were able to, from colonies, go to become a country and one of the most amazing and strongest and biggest countries and best countries and richest countries in the world. For us to be able to, and a lot of these battles that we won against the British, I mean, we were just so underarmed and undermanned. We paled in comparison to the resources that the British Army had, and for us to be able to stave them off and win, and it's a miracle, nothing short of a miracle. And so the schools should be definitely using this time to give kids just show how amazing, what we overcame and what we've done. Well, apparently there's a celebration for the 250th anniversary in California. Canyon Hills Junior High School in Chino Hills wanted to hold an event called History Rocks 250. Nothing partisan. Nothing discriminatory. It's this junior high wanted to celebrate and put on an event for the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. This has been reported by New York Post. Very cool, right? No. Critics stopped it. They stopped it. They felt the backlash was because I guess they were concerned about critical race theory, where the birth of America was an act of original sin, a long list of oppressive events. Mind you, we had a history that we are not proud of in terms of what we did to our own. But overtaking the British and being able to become a country that eventually stopped and abolished slavery and was one of the first to do so was a huge, huge win. But in Chino Hills, there's a backlash against celebrating America's 250. And the backlash might have been fueled because the patriotic event had a thumbs up and support from Turning Point USA and the Heritage Foundation. So you have, very few conservative, shall we say, pull or input into school curricula. Liberals usually run it. But you would think, bipartisan agreement going, this is going to be great. Let's, celebrate America's 250th. And no. This is frightening. And so, you're looking, because I'm looking at this, I'm like, why aren't we seeing more American flags? Why aren't we seeing more America 250 banners in the cities? Why aren't we? I mean, this is something we can celebrate year round. And I understand that the majority of our celebrations are going to be around July 4th. I'm really excited about that. But this is the year we celebrated. And no. And some people are saying, yeah, well, it's because Trump's our president. Our democratically elected president? Listen, you might not like the president. You might not like, your Congress people. You might not like politicians. But you're on soil that allows you to be free. I get to have my hair down. I get to wear a dress next week that might show my shoulders. And I don't have to worry about being stoned, raped, killed for violating some law that a a monstrous regime randomly tries to enforce. I get to be in America, and I'm so grateful for that. And so what worries me is people are not understanding the good they have and appreciate it. And mind you, we still have a lot of issues. But you know, when you hear people say, "Oh gosh, women are oppressed. Women can't." What are you talking about? We're vice president. We run for office. We run for presidency. We, get to wear our hair down. We get to wear bikinis. People are walking around Vegas half naked. We're in medical school, law school. I understand. There's still discrimination and racism and misogyny out there, but it's nothing like you would see in Iran. I mean, what? And if people don't appreciate what they have, they're going to be very, very quick to give it up. And that's dangerous. Now, just because you don't like the president who was elected by the majority of Americans, doesn't mean you have to dislike the country you're in and to wish that you were in Iran. I mean, if that's what you want, if you want to be there, go there. But it's interesting how everybody wanted to flee, like Ellen DeGeneres and Rosie O'Donnell, and they're coming back. There's nothing like America. And I get it, if you want to make a point and you want to, boycott and you want to, we have that freedom of speech, which is another great thing about America. If you want to dislike, things that are going on, you have right to peaceful assembly. You don't have the right to go after a cop or a firefighter or an ICE agent or each other, but you have a right to peaceful assembly. You have a right to protest and hold a sign. You have a right to boycott. Follow the teachings of Martin Luther King. He was brilliant in how to message without getting yourself arrested or hurt. But no, people are going to take this America 250, which is America's birthday, for the love of the Lord. I mean, really, it's you're free. You're here on safe soil. And people are going to protest it because they think it will then be anti-Trump. And, it's a real shame. It's a real shame because America is not about single party rule. All right. You're going to have people elected that you might not like. I mean, did people throw away their citizenship because Jimmy Carter was elected? I mean, no. He was our president. And then how did America respond? They responded with 8 years of Reagan. And there's an evolution to things. Biden, won after the 2020 election. And how did people respond to that? They elected Trump. There's always the waxing and waning. It's okay. But America still stands strong. And that's the consistent and common denominator. And we should celebrate that. 1-877 Dr. Dolly. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.